So one of our values here at SBC is missions. We are devoted to furthering the kingdom of God. And for many of you guys, just to kind of catch you up, the first 3 to 4 years, we purposely were trying to, hold everything before we do missions and anything overseas, because we wanted to make sure that we're healthy first as a church. Then COVID hit, and then now we're ready to really turn the corner and really pursue missions overseas and do that well. And so missions on out with Scott. And so Scott was, he said, hey, we should meet with this guy named Doug Kalunga. We met with him, and then everything happened with, going to Congo and everything like that. And so they're going to talk more about Congo, but I just want to let you know, this year, we're really going to start thinking through what's it look like for us as a church to further the kingdom of God overseas. And so we're looking at, a trip in Thailand that would happen later on at the end of the year, December, January. And so we're really trying to be intentional about what we do, where we go, and who we're connected with. And so just so you guys know, this is tonight, the stories of Congo, stories of missions, is possibly going to be something that we do, a rhythm that we do throughout the year when people go on teams and trips and things like that. And so this is just the beginning. And so without further ado, Tim, Scott, come on up. Looking forward to hearing how God has been at work.
Thanks, Pete. Are you right if I give a little context, a little history, and then we'll jump in? This is pretty informal, so once we get started, we're just going to walk through some pictures we took, kind of describe what we experienced. And if you have a question, interrupt us and ask us as we're going. We'd love to hear and clarify and answer questions. But as Pete said, I've known this guy named Doug Kalunga for probably a decade. He was going to undergrad school when I was going to seminary. He's from Congo, and so he's been trying to get me to go to Congo for years. And he started this organization called KFC, Kalunga for Congo. We've suggested he change that name several times. I think they're rebranding it right now. I don't know how he came up with that. But he's always had a heart for Congo. And a few years back, his dad, who was a congressman, died suddenly, and Doug was asked to take over for his dad. So now he runs that nonprofit KFC, but he's also a congressman in Congo. And so that was our main contact that we had there and who we traveled with when we went to the different villages. Our goal, this was really kind of a survey trip for us. It was we were just asking the question, God, what are you doing in Congo? And is there a way for us to partner with you in that? We don't really know, and Tim will probably say more. Probably up to halfway through this trip, we were still asking, God, we don't know what you're doing in Congo or why we're here, but what do you have for us? And so we'll talk a little bit more about where we landed on that, but that was kind of our trip. Any other backstory or context? Then I have a quick video to show you guys.
Well, we've been talking about this for half a year at least. And there was quite a team assembled to go. Everybody dropped out except Scott and me. And now that I'm back, first of all, I don't blame them for dropping out. They all had good reasons. But I'm not sure that team could have supported much more than just you and me.
Yeah, we were a lot.
We were a handful for them. But I'll tell you, the people there, they truly appreciated us being there. It meant a lot to them. As we may mention more than once, we were the first white guys they'd ever seen. So, you can get there, but nobody goes there. Nobody, in fact, I think as time went on, I realized Congo is one of the forgotten countries in Africa, one of a number, but truly a forgotten country.
Yeah, and we'll continue to talk with you guys more about that. But first I want to show you a video of this one thing that happened in Congo. A little bit of backstory for this, by the way. We're at one of the major villages, and they're waiting for Doug to talk and for us to share a little bit. But they're having microphone issues, right? We don't know anything about those here. But the microphones would not work. And so Doug, who are with, there's thousands of people just waiting, right? And they're playing Congolese music. So Doug just all of a sudden stands up and starts dancing, okay? So this is the context. Now you can watch what happened after that.
That's a village chief.
Yeah, so if you guys didn't know, Tim is officially a legend in Kimgala, Congo. And you couldn't quite hear it in the video, but when he stood up, it was deafening. It was so, they went bonkers. It was so loud I couldn't hear anything. It was crazy.
Fortunately,
You guys are the first white people they ever saw. The one thing they know for sure, white people can't
They cannot dance.
even with the simple dance steps, it was a challenge.
Yeah, so that was, we didn't do dancing in every village, but that was not an uncommon scene to just have a ton of people hanging around wanting to talk, spend time with us. And so, yeah, let's just kind of scroll through some of these pictures. We'll just tell you kind of next, Sean, and then we'll describe as we go. And again, just ask us questions.
So this is an intersection in the capital city. Those cars have been there for a few minutes, stopped still in the middle of the intersection. When you get to an intersection, you just move in. If there's a little space, you move a few inches. And you say, oh, I'm going to go over there. So you start heading that way. But there's people in front of you. As you can see, motorcycles, no pedestrians in that picture, but usually they're walking through also. And so, and everybody's fine with it. Nobody's mad. Nobody's honking their horn. They just know they're going to move about 2 inches every minute. And after about 10 minutes, or maybe a little more, you get through to where you're going, and off you go down the road. And there may be nobody on the road, but the intersection is just like that for, well, it's a good 10 minutes, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, at least.
Are they roundabouts?
Some are, some aren't.
But they don't use them like roundabouts.
No, just
So wherever you go, whenever you want about.
By the way, there are traffic signals, but nobody obeys them. There are maybe stop signs, but no one's going to stop. It's just, you get through the intersection as best you can.
One of the things that this picture kind of shows is the capital city of Kinshasa has about 15 million people with the infrastructure for about 500,000 people. And so is it just experience like this overwhelming crush of people. There's just people everywhere all the time, 24/7, cars, motorcycles, pedestrians, nonstop. It's just, I don't know how to describe it other than overwhelming.
Overwhelming, yes. And so the crush of people, and this is during the normal business hours. If it's rush hour, multiply by 2. We started out to see Doug's grandmother at one point, saw this long line of traffic ahead of us, turned around, just went back. We said, this probably isn't worth it. 2 or 3 hours to get there.
Yeah, and in addition to, we've talked about it here, obviously we're experiencing higher fuel prices with everything that's going on in the world. They're experiencing lack of fuel, period. I mean, so just the lines at some of the gas stations were just insane. People waiting forever just to get a little bit of gas. They just simply can't get it, let alone how much it's costing them to get it in the first place. So fuel's a big issue, yeah.
5 miles. You might as well just be walking.
Yeah, we were getting passed by pedestrians pretty often. Yeah, that's in the city. Yeah. Sean, you want to go to the next one?
So this is a computer lab. KFC has an educational component, a large educational component, and they try to do vocational training. So they have a computer lab. Someone recently brought a whole suitcase full of laptops.
Here from Fresno.
Here
yeah,
from
all those
Fresno.
computers came from Fresno. Yeah.
They're all fairly modern, newer than mine, and they have an instructor, and they're learning basics in Microsoft products.
I've told some people this, but the unemployment rate in Congo is 80%. So 80% of people do not have jobs, and so they're just trying to give them some usable, manageable job skills that they might be able to get the foot in the door somewhere to make some money for themselves and for their family.
Mm-hmm. So as a result, 80% unemployment, no unemployment insurance, no welfare, no benefits of any kind. When we're stopped in traffic, there are people wandering around with stacks of products on their heads, and they're trying to sell you stuff. What do we see? There's, of course, bottled water.
Eggs are the best.
There'd be like, I don't know, 8 dozen eggs stacked on a guy's head. Everything you can think of.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They would do anything they could just to make a little bit of money. So they would sell, like you said, water, masks, car charging things for your phones, whatever they could get their hands on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. In Congo, in the villages, they didn't notice our big increase in building material costs. When they need to build a house, they go cut down a bunch of sticks in the forest, and they bring them home, and they build a stick house, pretty much like that. Now, the roof might end up being tin, but often it's thatch. If they don't have enough money, it's thatch.
You heard the next one, Sean? Sean, there you go.
So there's a house with a tin roof, and you wonder, well, how'd they finish the walls? That's mud. You dig down about 3 feet, and you get this red clayey mud, sandy clay mud, and they just dig it out and pack the walls tight with it.
And you learn the hard way, if you lean against it when you're inside, it comes with you. Like the part of the wall is now part of your shirt. Go ahead, Sean, to the next one. Okay, so one of the things we did, and we probably drove through 30 villages, stopped and talked to 12 to 15 villages. One of the things that we got to do every single time we talked was they would want to hear from me and Tim, why are you guys here? What are you all about? And so we just would usually have anywhere from a couple of minutes to, depending on the village, a little bit longer, to talk to them about that we're from Sanger Bible Church, and we love the Lord, and we love them, and we wanted to come talk to them about Jesus and be a resource to them in any way we could. And so we got to do that, I don't know, 12 or 15 times, something like that.
Yeah, we were able to speak a number of times, and I think it was an encouragement to the people who were there. They sure acted encouraged. They were enthusiastic. There's no half-hearted welcoming there. It was all full throttle.
Yeah, and I think it took us about half the trip to really believe it. Doug kept saying, the fact that you're showing up gives them hope, which just sounded weird to us. But the fact that a lot of people there would say, no one cares about Africa, no one cares about us. If you're willing to leave America and come here, your presence alone speaks that somebody must care about us. And so the fact that we were willing to show up, which didn't seem like a big deal to us, but to show up and talk to them a little bit and spend some time with them was just a big, big deal to them.
Mm-hmm. This is a typical crowd.
Yeah. So this was the time we escaped Doug and his guards and ran away in one of the villages, and they found us. So those are all a bunch of kids in a village called Kijiji that would just kind of, anywhere we went, you would just draw a crowd, and they would just come want to sit next to you, talk to you, touch your skin, anything they could do to be around you. And so this was one of those occasions. And I think we may talk more about it. It's hard to tell, but right behind us is an airstrip. And so MAF used to fly planes into this village. They no longer do it because it's overgrown. But one of the things we'd like to do is to re-clear that airstrip and be able to bring supplies into some of these villages.
Right now they have to come in by truck, and there aren't very many trucks that can actually make the trip. All the trucks we saw were rather antiquated, and they might be able to make the trip, but they may not make it because of breakdowns or, we saw, in traveling, we saw a number of trucks on the road, but we saw twice as many broken down on the side of the road.
So this was, I can't remember the name of this village. We thought this one was funny just because they had an American flag in the middle of our little talk. This village we spent maybe an hour or two at. The one thing you can't see it here, but we pulled in and thought you could build a vacation center here. It was one of the most picturesque places on the side of a mountain that I've ever seen. It was where this village was located.
Mm-hmm. They had wells here. This is one of the 2 dry wells?
Yeah.
They had hand-dug 250-foot wells, and they worked for 5 months, and then they quit. They drained the aquifer. With the new drilling rigs that he's importing, they'll be able to go 800 feet?
I don't remember.
A lot
That's your
deeper.
department.
A lot deeper. And hopefully get a stronger water source for them. But they had, just think of how you'd feel if you dug 250-foot wells and they only lasted 5 months. These people were a little discouraged.
Yeah.
Yes.
Without going down a rabbit hole, what does a 250-foot hand dug well look like? How are they getting in and out?
Okay, well, this is auger, so they're not going down, they're on top, but, they've got an auger, a bucket auger, and it's got, 8-foot flights on it, so just once you get down a certain depth, most of the time it's just taking the thing apart and putting it back together to get down deeper. But you'll see, we have a broken down well picture in here. Okay, so this is the church bell. I don't know if you can see it there.
I hated this thing with a passion. I was going to steal it.
That's an old rim. We used to have things called split rims here. They still have them there. And that one broke apparently, but they don't throw anything away. They hung it up and they whack it with something, and they wake everybody up at 5:30?
5 a.m. They start church every day. 5 a.m.
So we got awakened every day at 5 a.m. and you start your day. The sun comes up at 6, by the way. Comes up at 6, goes down at 6 all year round.
Nescafe sometimes. Sometimes.
We knew it was time to leave when the Nescafe ran out.
They only drink instant coffee.
Yeah, there's no grounds.
We got to help with that next time. Do you want to tell this story? This one is one of those.
Okay, so the guy in the middle there, that is a friend of Doug's father. He's really old. He's missing a foot. I didn't figure out what that was about, but he's got a crutch there to his right. And he is in a town, a bigger town. You can see the construction of the building there. And he was a friend of Doug's father, a big help to Doug's father. And Doug is committed to this guy's upkeep. So every time he goes through his town, he stops and talks to him and gives him some money to keep going. Remember, there's no welfare system here. Someone's got to take care of you. And he's, I don't know, he's at least as old as I am, I think.
Yeah, he was old. Yeah, old for sure.
So anyway, Doug kind of takes care of him. And it was a big show of respect for Doug to show up, pay attention to him. It elevates him in the community, which also helps him exist there.
What happens is, like Tim said, there's no welfare system, so you're expected to take care of your family. So Doug was constantly doing things for aunts and uncles and cousins, and if his dad was taking care of somebody, because his dad died and he took over, it was now Doug's job to take care of them as well. And so your family carries a huge responsibility to care for people in your family, and especially as folks are getting older or don't have jobs. If you do have a job, it's your job to take care of everybody. And so you spend a lot of time doing that culturally. This was Tim showing off his master skills and helping them build desks. Go ahead, you can talk about this.
So a guy, what was it, a few hundred miles away?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. He had got some hardwood and he had milled it and pre-cut all these school desk pieces. Now, it didn't come with any instructions, but it was fairly self-explanatory how to put them together. So we wanted to help out. We put together half a dozen. And how many were there? A few hundred? But here's us sitting at one.
Notice we're using our outside legs because the whole desk is about to go fold over on us.
There was no cross bracing, and so I tried to explain to them that it needs cross bracing, and they had wood for that there, but it didn't compute. I said, well, they'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah, when the kids go tumbling down.
Right. Okay, you want to?
Yeah, so this is an example of a working well, and the way they do this is the community hires a couple of people to pump water. You bring your yellow jugs of water, those what those are for. You're allowed, I don't remember, a certain amount a day, and part of what a very small amount you pay goes to paying those workers. But they kind of ration out all the water to make sure that everybody's getting it equally and fairly. There's not somebody that's getting all the water and people who aren't, but that's what they do. This is a picture of a different village. This is a dry well. So this is one of the wells they dug, and then it went dry within 4 or 5 months, and it's just sitting there, and so they're not getting any water. Quick fun story about those yellow jugs. In Congo, they think it's a good idea to fill those ones with water and use the same exact jugs and fill it with diesel fuel. So we were supposed to go to church one Sunday morning, We wake up and our Land Cruiser won't start. And they're like, oh, we think we dumped a yellow jug full of water into the gas tank with the diesel fuel. So then they spent the rest of the morning taking the gas tank out, sucking the water and fuel out of the fuel lines. It was fun. But that put us back a little bit when we were there.
We arrived well after church.
Yeah.
So in the area that you guys traveled, what was the average rainfall?
Oh, in the rainy season, it would be feet. But this is the 3 or 4 month dry season, and they get no rain. We saw clouds, but there wasn't any hint of rain.
And so there's no infrastructure thought for dams or reservoirs?
Oh, the soil is incredibly sandy. It's like Pismo Beach. So you'd have to line everything, and there's no way they could do that.
But there was fish farmers there somewhere because they talked about it, but we never went and saw their ponds. I don't know how they did
I
it.
think they were down by the creek.
Oh, yeah. So this is, we were able to meet with about 45 pastors and church staff and do a quick training encouragement. So this is us doing that in the church in Kingwangala. We got to just talk with them about Moses and Jethro and encourage them and then ask them questions about, hey, if we brought people back, what would you want to hear? What sort of training and equipping would you need? And they all universally said they would love and need encouragement, equipping, training, any sort of pastoral training they would love to have. That's a picture of us with pretty much all the folks who showed up at that training.
Yeah, if you look carefully, about a third of the way from the right edge, you'll see a guy with a little white cap on. That's a Muslim guy. He came too. And he seemed to participate in everything. And Scott and I were just wondering, what if we were to do pastor training? Would he show up? And I wonder what the Holy Spirit would do in his heart.
Yeah, and one of the things we noticed, side note about that too, is almost every village had a mosque, and a lot of them also had a JW, Jehovah's Witness, church building or something like that. And so there's a lot of religions and groups that are moving in. And as a general rule of thumb, those two buildings were the nicest ones in the village. The mosque and the Jehovah's Witness buildings were always really nice. I think you'll find Tim and I somewhere in the middle of that picture. This is showing up at one of the villages and what it kind of felt like to walk into a village for the first time. It felt like you were walking into a parade most of the time. I don't know about you guys, but my personality, one of the things I hate is being the center of attention. Like my worst nightmare is to go to a restaurant when they sing for your birthday. I hate that. Don't ever do that to me. This entire trip felt like we were the center of attention. Just constantly, there were just people all around wanting to be around us, talk to us, hang out, all sorts of stuff. So take pictures with us. But yeah, this was just a pretty typical village. I guess this was one of the bigger ones, what would look like when we showed up. Yeah. So there is a pretty long history of missionaries in Congo, all the way back, I think, from the 20s until they were there for quite a while, had to leave because Belgium left and it was unsafe. The general feeling we get is a lot of people are familiar with or have heard about Jesus, but it's hard to tell how many of them are walking deeply with Jesus. When you talk to the pastors, it sounds like discipleship is an issue for almost all of them when it comes to their congregations. And some of them seemed a little bit synchronistic in that they were just importing other things into their faith with that because there wasn't any clear discipleship. So whether that was cultural things or, they were just kind of mixing and matching some things, it seemed like a little bit. But they weren't, the name of Jesus wasn't foreign to most of them because there had been missionaries and missionary history there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Here we are setting a cornerstone. Remember which?
I think this one was for the school.
Okay, for a school building, this is all totally symbolic. The stone doesn't stay there, but we show up, we put the first stone down, they say, okay, cool, now we can start. Something like that. But the fact that their congressman showed up to do it with two white guys, that made it even more significant. Yeah. And this one was for the new maternity hospital. Same kind of deal. This one they actually set in cement, but I don't think it's any more permanent than the last one. Okay, here is the maternity hospital. And these, I only see two. Where's the third baby?
I don't know. We lost her since we came back.
It's there somewhere, but these women have been here for a while. They don't have the $10 necessary to get out of the maternity hospital, and they stay there until they can pay. Their families have to bring them food every day. Every day. So we had exchanged $100 for a whole lot of Congolese francs. It was 200,000 francs for $100. Made us feel rich. But I pulled out one of my wads of notes and paid for these three ladies, and they got to go home. And so here is the lady in the white she's the matron for the maternity hospital, maybe the nurse too, I don't know. And I thought, oh boy, here you are. These ladies don't have any money, and you're going to keep them there for how long? But this was supposed to be the new maternity hospital, but then they decided it was too small. So we were wondering if they're going to take it apart and use it to build a bigger new one, do something with the existing structure. We didn't know.
One of the things we learned there, and Doug said often, is there was a lack of vision. So then when they went to build something new, they would build it just big enough for what they needed now. But the problem was by the time the thing got built, it was already too small for whatever they needed now. And so to help them realize, like, no, you've got to build this thing or work on this thing like you're going to have it for 5 or 10 years. You can't do it like, it is right now. And so
here we are giving tools, agricultural equipment, this is called. You'll see a machete there. Scott is holding a shovel, and there's also a hoe. Their hoes are serious hoes. They're like cast iron, and you put a big stick on the end. These things weigh, 3 or 4 pounds? When you're whacking with those hoes, you're building some muscle, and they'll do that all day. By the way, not the men, the women do it all day.
yeah, one of the interesting cultural things, since you bring it up, Tim, that we learned is that it's the women's job to farm the mantioc, which is a primary plant they eat. They farm it, and then they pick it, take it home and grind it. Most of them hand grind it, and you'll see a picture of that. And then it's their job to cook dinner as well for the whole family. And they said it's not uncommon for a Congolese man to be sitting under the tree in the shade for 8 hours watching his wife do that day after day after day. And so most of the guys that were on our team that were with us were like, we don't treat Congolese women well here. And they were ashamed of it, but it's very normal there. It's just the way the culture is.
The Congolese men have 2 jobs. One is to clear the forests so the women can cultivate cassava or manioc. The other is to hunt. Well, do we see any wild animals?
None, not a single animal.
No lions, no tigers, no bears, no antelope, no elephants, no zebras, no nothing. So what are they hunting? They say they find antelope,
Field
but I don't
mice.
know where. Well, should we tell them about that?
There's a picture, I think, in it, maybe.
Maybe. If there's not, well, see us afterwards. You learn about field mice.
Go ahead, Sean. Okay, so we've traveled, what did we said, over 90 hours in Land Cruisers and over 1,200 miles. Most of it looked like this. And so those are all guys trying to push it out of probably a sand pit or something that we got stuck in. And those are all our gas cans stuck on the back of it because there wasn't gas stations where we were going. You had to bring all your own fuel until you got there. So that's Tim up there trying to figure out how to get us out of that sand pit we drove into. And that was the last time that driver drove that truck was after he ran it into the wall right there. Fun story too, if you want to ask Tim later, ask him about his Land Cruiser driving skills. Doug got really tired one time and let Tim drive, and it was great until Tim flew off the track up into the jungle and then back onto the track. And then Doug was like, I'm awake, I'm good, I can drive, I'm not tired anymore. And that was the end of that.
He said, as we launched into the jungle, he said, brake. I said, no, we're going to get back on the road. So we just powered on through, and he got a little excited.
Yep, so that's us broke down again. You can see the roads, like that's got to be a 12 or 15 foot like thing. We're like driving in a giant, canyon. I don't know why they did the roads that way or how they got that way, but...
There's an explanation. So this is all sand, right? At first, you're going up and downhill over the sand, but you're pounding the sand and loosening it up all the time. Well, then the rainy season comes and it rains 5 inches in a day. Well, a lot of that loose sand runs off the top of the hill down into the low spot. That top of that hill, the road starts digging into the hill, and over 50 or 60 years, you're 10 to 15 feet deep. And so at the top of the hill, it's not so bad, it's pretty hard. But as you're climbing the hill, you're climbing up soft sand that the rain has pushed down, and at the bottom of the hill, it's really soft. It's who knows how deep. So but after a while, though, everything's going to be smooth, flat, level, but the sand getting through there it's a trick.
Okay, so one of the things we did, we were gifted some soccer balls by some of y'all to bring to the kids. And so this is just a picture of giving one of the kids in one of the village soccer balls. I think we brought 28 of them to give out. I forgot mine in the back. I traded with a couple of kids. I'll show you what they were playing with. There's one in the sound booth, Chandra. I don't know where yours is. There's another little kid who we gave a soccer ball to. But they were so excited to see these soccer balls. In fact, like, village to village, they would call each other and be like, hey, what'd you guys get? Did you guys get a soccer ball? So they would talk to each other because they knew we were going. Yeah, so Chandra told them, this is what I traded for. So the average soccer ball, saw over and over and over again there. That's what the kids were playing soccer with. Yeah. It's something wrapped around with a plastic bag and string. No, I was shocked. I was like, this is going to be interesting. No, leaving Congo is a whole nother story. You got to take me out to coffee, I'll tell you that. But that was a whole other ordeal, but nothing to do with, with that. So this was me in one of the main villages playing soccer with some of the kids where we traded. Like, if any of you are all soccer players, they're pretty universal. The first thing they tried to do was meg me, if you know what that means, which put the ball between my legs. Because if you put the ball, you're showing off, right? Like, so as soon as I was able to meg one of them, and like, it was awesome. The place went nuts. But that's all they were trying to do, was kick a soccer ball between my legs the whole time. But we got to hang out with them and do that for a little while, which was a lot of fun. You can explain this one.
So the guy in the cowboy hat, he's the chief. If we were to see him wandering around Sanger, we would think he's a little bit touched in the head, probably on drugs, and living on the street. No, he's the chief. So he's got this cowboy hat that, this the same type we would have had when we were 8 or 10 years old playing cowboys and Indians. On the front is a star that says sheriff on it. So we bit our tongues, did not laugh, tried to be all respectful and all, but he's the important man. He's the head dog there. And what are we doing? This is a wet place. They don't have salt. They can't get salt. So everywhere we stopped, we handed out a 25-pound bag of rock salt, not fine granulated. It was rock salt. We give it to the chief. He passes it around for the whole village, and it's got to last them a while.
Yeah, and the one thing about the hat, we're still trying to figure out too, but every chief had a hat. Not that hat, but they all were like very unique and odd, and like, where did you get that? So there's something about the culture that says chiefs do that. I don't know why. One had like an old military hat or police hat. They just all had that for some reason.
At least one had a hat, and I got a similar one at home that came from Central Asia. They're funny little square hats that actually fold flat. Well, he'd worn his so long that it wasn't going to fold flat anymore, but I recognized it. Where he got it, who knows? But they all had an odd hat on.
Yeah.
Scott, where did the salt come from, and the cars and all of this that was put together? How did all that get put together, and the gas and the travel and the soccer ball? How did all that come together?
Yeah, so Doug, part of it was kind of a conjunction of a couple different things. Doug's organization, KFC, that raises funds, so part of the funds come from KFC. 2 of the Land Cruisers are KFC Land Cruisers. The other 2 were rented. Part of the funds probably came from the government because as Doug was going, he was visiting villages that were in his district. And so there was some funding from there. In fact, some of the guys were like a security team from the government that he has to travel with. And then the salt and the soccer balls came from us. The salt and things like that were probably a little bit of KFC, a little bit of the government. They give him an allotment of money when he goes to visit villages to help take care of problems that are there. I mean, the government does so little to help with infrastructure. It's kind of their way of saying, like, here, let's appease the people a little bit. So if they need money for salt or they need money for something else, like, you're responsible for divvying that out as needed to whoever needs it. And so he takes, I think he said $10,000 is what the government gives him to use for a variety of different things. It could be a bridge that needs to be repaired. It could be, I don't know, something else that's going on in the village. And so it was kind of a conjunction of all of those things. SBC giving some funds to help do it, KFC, and then money from his government. And then he will take, I don't know, I have no idea what his salary is, but Doug allots chunks of his salary to certain things. So like he's building basically a town hall in one of the villages. There's a couple other things that he personally is just supporting in these villages.
Did you guys feel safe?
Yeah.
In Kinshasa, in the daytime, we felt fine. I would not have gone out at night there. It wasn't scary, but it was worrisome. In the village, you could walk around any time of the day or night. Everyone loved you. Everyone was looking out for you. It was a wonderful place to be.
Yeah, I never felt in danger or anything like that. Kind of what Tim said. I wouldn't have gone wandering around Kinshasa at night, but because we were traveling with a government official, we had armed guards everywhere we went. So, and I never felt like anyone was even interested in threatening us anyway. Oh yeah, we got in trouble one night because Doug went to go off to visit a different village, and we stayed in the main village. And we were trying to figure out if we're doing ag stuff. So we're like, hey, do these guys raise bees, and how do they do it? So we started asking around, and the guy's like, yeah, there's a beehive out here. He talks to like 4 other guys, and finally we just start like Tim said, it gets dark at 6 every single night. And so we're just wandering off, following these guys. And Doug and his security guys came back, and then one of the guys that was with us gets a phone call. He's like, where are you guys? They're panicked. Come back. Tell us where you are. We're going to come save you. And we're like, we're fine. We're just out in the woods looking at bees. And so, yeah.
So the security team, if we wandered off at all, they got nervous and they would track us down. Well, sometimes you just got to be by yourself. No, you're not. That's not happening.
You got the feeling from those guys that, like Tim said, we were the first white guys that most of them had ever seen. And it might have been an international incident if something happened to us. Like, they had never seen white people before. And if the only 2 they've ever seen, like, wander off and get lost in the jungle or get eaten or something, it's probably not so good. So they were pretty protective. Yeah. This is early on. This is an average house of kind of a more poor village. It's all thatch. If you looked inside this thing, it's one room, dirt floor, and people just basically live outside. You sleep in there maybe, but there's not much room in there. This particular guy had 2 wives and 7 kids. That's one wife's house. The other one was right next to that one. He told us they didn't fight. I don't really know. We didn't get a chance to experience it. And then if you go to the next picture, I think, okay, so this is how they ground the manioc by hand. And so that's one of the wives of that guy. She had gone out and got the manioc root and is now hand pounding it in that, I don't know what you call that.
That's a wooden mortar and pestle, giant size.
And then in that yellow and blue bowl is basically the powder that she's done so far. So she's gonna finish pounding that and then you combine it with boiling water and turn it into fufu.
Yeah, that's their unbaked bread, water and manioc powder made into a dough, really doughy, just like bread dough, but they serve it doughy, they don't bake it.
Yeah. Tim said it's a consistency of Play-Doh.
Play-Doh, and it doesn't have the flavor of Play-Doh. It's
a little better.
It's really, really bland.
It's kind of, I tell people, it's like their version of tortillas. They use it to pick up meats and vegetables and eat other stuff with it. Yeah. Okay, and they eat it like 3 meals a day. Huh?
No, high in carbohydrates. It has some protein, but the main component would be carbohydrate.
When we tried to eat it the first night, Tim and I each took half of a blob, and that was a lot. The next day I thought I was going to take a whole blob, and there's no way. But the dudes, they were eating 2 at a time, no problem.
And they're about this, a little smaller than a softball.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dough.
Not cooked.
Not cooked.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Oh, okay. There you go. So one of the things, I'll just say a few things to wrap up, and then you can add on to that, Tim. One of the things I was telling Tim was like, hey, nobody wants to hear our entire 2 weeks version of this. Tim's got 22 pages of notes if you want the long version. If you really want to hear more and have questions, we'd love to just grab coffee or take you out to lunch, and you guys can ask away, and we'll give you the long version of a lot of this stuff. But we went there asking, hey, what's God doing, and how can we join him there? And Doug had this vision that we were going to come back, and we were going to find 10 young people from SBC and send them there for the next trip. And we told Doug, like, Doug, they ain't going to come, and they ain't going to last if you put them what we went through. So here's some suggestions. They're going to basically take that airstrip and make it so you can fly from Kinshasa into Kijiji in a couple hours, 2 or 3 hour flight. And then you can get on a Land Cruiser and drive for 2.5, 3 hours instead of 30 hours to get to the main village. But one of the things we noticed when we were there, a couple things we noticed is there's a need for pastoral training and equipping, and a huge need. And so if we were to send a team back with SBC or other churches in Fresno, we'd love to see people go there to equip pastors, because they will travel from villages around to come here and experience that. The second thing that they need is teachers. The president there has just made it a law that there's free education for everybody, which is the first time in Congo history. So they're now starting to get teachers in every village, but they're under-resourced, under-educated. They don't have even simple things like pens and paper and pencils, definitely not computers. And so something to come alongside teachers would be a second thing. And then the third thing is agriculture and farming. There's a need to help them get, above subsistence level living when it comes. They've got the land, they have a lot of the natural resources to pull it off, but there are some other things that they might need as well. We're very cognizant that we're not and are not kind of these Western saviors coming in to fix everything, but rather to go, hey, what do you guys already have? Is there any way we can come alongside and encourage and help what you're already doing? And so those are some ideas. I don't know if we will go back or when we will go back, but those are 3 big things that stood out to us. And then the other thing is the organization of KFC is focusing on 2 things moving forward: living water and clean water. So living water, how do we continue to get the gospel to these folks and equip and disciple? And then clean water, how do we dig wells? It would take, most of them would need, depending on the size of the village, 2 to 4 or 5 wells to be able to serve that many people. Most of the people right now are walking hours and hours to get a couple of buckets of clean water every single day. If they were to get clean well water, one, it would help with hygiene, disease, but you also would be buying them those hours back each day that they can then work on other things. They could spend time with their kids. They could spend time on farming and ag and developing that. So those are 2 things that are kind of a big deal moving forward in Congo.
Once they have clean water, once they have the gospel's been presented, who knows what the Holy Spirit will do in their hearts, but at least give them a chance to hear. Once they have a more efficient way to grow food, one little story, we're broke down on the side of the road. Here comes this lady walking along. Doug says, where are you going? Well, my village is out of food. So what are you going to do? Well, I heard this village down the road that might have some extra. It's another 15-kilometer walk. And she's halfway. She's come 15 kilometers. But their food security is non-existent. If they can, and we had thoughts of maybe they plant more acres, maybe they increase production. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, but if we could at least help them be a little more consistent in food production, or maybe a little more efficient, and satisfy their basic need for food, clean water, the Word of God, what's the next thing they need? They need to be able to get around. And will they ever get roads? I don't know, but that's the next thing. If they had access to the outside world, things would change, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, I mean, this point, like I said, they're traveling, walking for hours to get water. Early on, we were there, we were driving at night, and he's like, there's people walking down the road, and they were like, oh, they're gonna walk all night. They literally walked past us. We slept for 3 hours, got in the Land Cruiser, started driving again, caught up to them. They're still walking to try and make it to the next village. So they'll literally walk all night long to try and get to the next village to get whatever it is they need, whether it's food or water or whatever is going on over there. It's the only option they have right now. Yeah, Cindy. So some of the villages have cell signal, but it's pretty spotty. No internet out there at all. That's one of the things some of them are asking for is more access to technology when it comes to cell signals. I don't know. I mean, it was kind of a mixed bag as far as we were thinking about it. Like, we know it comes with that, obviously, here. But if you have some sort of emergency and you can't get a phone call out, you're stuck, you know? And so for them to at least be able to have some sort of communication with the outside world would be helpful. But a lot of them, they may have a cell phone. If they don't have it in their village, they're walking, again, however far to get a cell service to call somebody or whatever. In the village, there is some solar. You'd see occasional solar panels. The hut we stayed in had solar that was charging a car battery that was turned on most of the time at night, but not all of the time. But that would be doing pretty well. Most of them, there's nothing. It's just, yeah, there's no electricity at all. No, it's manual. It's hand pump. Yeah, it's all hand pump.
Yeah, none of their aquifers are strong enough for an electric pump. The hand pump provides flow control so they don't overdraft their well. And I estimated from the way they were filling their containers about 4 gallons per minute. Well, that's 2,400 gallons per hour times 12 hours, about 30,000 gallons a day. That's about all those wells are going to be good for. 30,000 gallons a day is just over an acre-inch of water. It wouldn't grow, you can't use them for irrigation. But it will provide 2,500 people, 30,000 gallons, 6 gallons. How many, what's that?
You lost me like
12,
a minute ago.
12 gallons per person, which is pretty good. If you could live on 12 gallons per day.
Well, is there any idea that there's more of an aquifer deeper?
They don't even know.
They did get that machine from China that he said will tell them. They got some sort of machine. It was in a locked suitcase that they couldn't get unlocked when we were there.
They didn't have the key.
It was kind of amusing, but apparently that helps them figure out where to tell.
Wishbone-shaped thing with handles on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they did get the airport functioning, would the Mission Aviation Fellowship come back?
If you paid them to.
Yeah, the flights are between $4,000 and $5,000 to get from Kinshasa out there.
That's for the whole plane. So if you're talking about 12 people or something like 10, 12 people or something like that on an airplane, you split that up. It's not quite as crazy, but yeah.
By the way, if you've driven in, you say, I'll pay the $400.
Any
Thank
day of
you.
the week.
Any day of the
Sign
week.
me up for the flight. Almost everybody there speaks French fluently. That's kind of the business language, they said. And then they also all seem to speak their tribal language. So it depends on which tribal area you're in. But those would be the two major ones. There was other than Doug, there was a few people that spoke a little bit of broken English, but not much. Most of them want to learn English, but it's pretty low. But French and then whatever the tribal languages are the two big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. If you went there and had an English Bible and a French Bible and sat down with guys, they'd talk to you all day long. They're just trying to learn English.
What kind of crops? So predominantly by far was manioc. They use the root to do a powder to make the fufu, and then they eat the leaves. It's called cassava. And then I don't know, you can speak what else you saw.
I saw people carrying around peanut plants that they just pulled out of the ground, and they were picking the peanuts off the plant and eating them raw. What else do we see?
We kept being able to buy bananas everywhere. So there's
Bananas,
definitely bananas. And the mango trees there looked amazing. It wasn't mango season, but I was like, I want to come back during mango season. They were crazy. That was most of what we saw.
Oh, there was some corn.
Yeah.
Saw some corn, not much.
Lots of chickens or not?
So here's the status on the animals. A poor village doesn't have any animals. A little more prosperous village has chickens running around. If you have goats running around, you're doing pretty well. And then you might have pigs. Oh, that's a pretty ritzy village. But the top of the line villages, the place you want to live, they have cows too. So yeah, they've got livestock, and that's the only wildlife we saw.
We almost got ran over by one of those cows, by the way. Tim ran, I've never seen him run so fast in my entire life. It was tied to a post. The thing about chickens, I don't know, I mean, I have chickens in my house that I don't understand is they don't house them. So I kept asking, how do you find the eggs? Like, it's like an Easter egg hunt every day just to find eggs for your house or whatever. But yeah, they don't house them. They just let them run around.
So there's little chicks running around all over too.
Well, they had tags on their, I noticed a lot of them had bands on their legs. So I'm assuming they color coded them or something. Yeah. Yeah.
A question in terms of, talk about the rainy season, but is there a need to water crops there? Would there be water crops?
That's a really good question. The cassava manioc plants look fine, and they hadn't had rain in quite some time. And they won't get any rain for, till September?
Something like that.
But the plants look fine. But you wonder.
But there was, on the way back, we were passing through an area that was in the middle of nowhere, not near any villages that we could really see, that somebody had farmed extensively, like acres and acres, that they definitely had used a tractor to do it. So I don't know what they're doing for water out there. There's got to be something, I would assume, or maybe they don't need it.
Well, the combine had a corn header on it, a 4-row corn header. So somebody was making money, because that was a small one. But even that's a $300,000 machine, and they had a nice tractor to go along with it.
Could they do ponding basins?
With the sandy soil where we were, that wouldn't have worked, but I'm sure there are places with heavier soil where it would work.
Or a liner or something?
And they'd have to have a liner, yeah.
Or find some clay, clay soil somewhere.
Yeah, we had talked about, I don't know the viability of this, but we had talked to, like, we saw very little rain collection. Like, was there a possibility to do rain collection in the rainy season so that you've got it more in the dry season? Because I get plenty of rain in the rainy season for sure. But didn't seem to be much of an effort that we could tell to
We
collect
saw
and save.
2 cisterns, but they weren't more than 300 gallons. You know, they're not going to last long. Above ground cisterns.
How do they? I can tell you how we took baths. They told us, we got your bath ready, which was a bucket of water that they set by your door. That was your bath. So you've just figured it out. And I figured out you could wash your clothes in there when you were done if you really needed to.
Exactly, yeah. The clothes needed rinsing out frequently. We had a marvelous lady in the village we were staying at. She'd show up in the morning with a couple of gallons of warm water in the bottom of a bucket, and that was our bath water. She would cook for us. She would wash our clothes.
She did Tim's laundry, not my laundry.
Well, you mine really, I was way dirtier.
You should ask Jane. I don't think we took a picture, but we got back to I think it was the hotel last night, and Doug kept saying, Tim, you should wash your face. Tim, do you need some water?
I hadn't seen myself in who knows how long.
It was entertaining. Let's just say that.
I had officially become African. We come through this town. We're staying overnight there because we'd been on the road 48 hours already, and no one was going to go any further that night. So Doug gets us a room at this VIP hotel. You would have much preferred any Motel 6 by far, but so we get in our rooms. My room, I had a towel which was already wet. I had
Pre-used.
I had soap, and I had a toilet seat. Doug's room had no towel, no soap, no toilet seat. Scott had soap.
I had soap, no towel, no toilet
No
seat.
toilet seat.
What would have been helpful is to realize I didn't have a towel before I got in the shower. Because they were just like, hey, get in the shower. Like it's like midnight, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, this is great. But I had a toilet that at least worked, kind of.
My toilet worked well. My drain in the shower didn't work, but the toilet worked. And of course, if they would have asked me, I would have let them borrow my soap, but they didn't ask. But okay, and these rooms, was that a queen size bed?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Well, the room was just a little bit bigger than the bed.
And it had electricity when I went to sleep, but at some point during the night, that was gone too.
It's
So
gone. Yeah.
no fan, no air conditioning, nothing.
No, even in my room,
No lights.
when the electricity was there was no air conditioning. It didn't work. Mid-90s, pretty consistently.
I felt like every day was low to mid 90s high, and then like 70s.
65 in the morning. By the way, Congolese don't take cold. So we get up and it's 65 degrees outside. We're thinking, ooh, this is nice. They're all huddled around a little charcoal fire, shivering. And we're going, ooh. But it was, in the mornings, it was just marvelous. Best time of the day.
We went on and keep you guys all night. Any last questions? And then we'll wrap up. And like I said, you can always come bug us. We'll be happy to buy coffee or whatever.
That lady came and fixed you breakfast, like just more of this go off?
Well, sometimes she did breakfast, but I think Jeremy cooked a lot of the breakfast.
Jeremy cooked, Doug's right-hand man, Jeremy, marvelous man, tireless. And he cooked at least twice, maybe 3 times.
One time we had noodles.
Noodles with Texas corned beef.
Oh, yep.
A tin like Spam, but it was called Texas corned beef.
Yeah.
And palm oil. He put palm oil in it.
Yeah. They pre-cooked before we left a whole bunch of fried chicken, fried fish, and then they called them cakes. It was basically like a cupcake without any frosting. The 200 of them. And so we kind of lived off for the first couple of days the cakes and the fried chicken, but that was all in the back of the truck with us, and after a while it got a little old and smelly.
We decided we weren't that hungry anymore.
Yeah. But we didn't get sick, so it's all good. And Chandra didn't get malaria, so that was good.
We took our pills.
Took our malaria pills, yeah. Yeah. Any last questions? So they told us we had to take malaria pills, we had bug spray, we slept in bug nets in the one village. The only time we saw a mosquito was in the airport in Kinshasa when we were leaving to come home. Yeah. And one interesting thing we learned about mosquitoes, at least they told us, we're like, are the mosquitoes way worse in the villages? And they said, oh no, the mosquitoes are way worse in Kinshasa, in the cities. There's just more dirty things, trash and stagnant water and stuff like that. There's actually more issues with mosquitoes in the cities than there is out in the villages. So, yeah. There's a Congo River? It's one of the biggest in the world, they said. Yeah, so certain villages were on rivers or streams. Some of them are right on the Congo River. We kept joking. I kept saying, if I ever lived here, the only place I'm living is next to one of those things. I don't know why I'd live anywhere else. And so those villages felt a little bit different. They had boats that they'd go out and a lot of fishing, that sort of stuff, for the folks that live near the rivers and whatnot. But yeah, there's some water systems there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the way back, we crossed some beautiful little creeks, 10 feet wide, 2 feet deep, flowing quickly, just beautiful water.
We took baths there. Yeah. All right, well, let me pray for us. And then, like I said, don't hesitate to bug us if you want to hear more. Lord, we're grateful for this church, the people of SBC that are willing to send us to Congo to see what you're doing there. I'm grateful for KFC and the work they're doing there, and yet so aware of just the many challenges, the immense amount of people, the poverty, the corruption, the needs for just clean water and for discipleship. And we pray for the people of Congo, the people that we got to work with in KFC, the people in the villages, that you would continue to shine your light upon them, that they would grow in their relationship with you. Pray for those that have opportunity and resources to come alongside them in small ways and help them, give them hope, give them access to clean water, give them access to your living water, Lord. And I pray that you'll just continue to move in us, whatever you would have us do. We're grateful. In Jesus' name, amen.